be here. Very interesting topic. Unlocking conglomerate potential by unifying ecosystems, be it tech, be it consumer. I think businesses now, as they're evolving, different brands are at a different maturity stage. But the biggest question is, do we really need it as a conglomerate? And what is the unlocking happening? How are we defining it? I think I'm going to put that first question to Varun. Sorry, took it by surprise. But yeah, I want to understand because ABFRL, of course, been creating brands. But the question is, how are you defining it and do we really need it, is the question.
Yeah, I don't think we need it just for the heck of it, right? Obviously, brands, ABFRL, let's say some of our competition, Tatas, Reliances, they've all built large brands without conglomerate programs, right? And the ones, the conglomerate programs which have done well are typically where there's a strong CVP or there's a strong CX angle. And if you look at Tata Neu, for example, it has both of them and the consumer adoptions are there, right? On its own, I don't think just by building a group program or a group common unified database, you're going to sort of, suddenly double revenue. It's not that simple. So to my mind, if I look at it more consumer first, consumers are going to individual brands of our company. They're going to a Pantaloons, they're going to a Louis Philippe. They are not necessarily going to Aditya Birla Fashion, right? They quite often, a lot of consumers want to know that they're common, right? And if I try and thrust in saying that, oh, just because you have bought in Pantaloons and now I know that you have a propensity to buy menswear of so and so size, so let me start putting in Louis Philippe marketing, that's very forced. And it's actually going to be slightly annoying for consumers and quite likely push them out of, they might say, ye kya chal raha hai? Why suddenly am I getting targeted? So unless there's a strong CVP angle which the consumer is voluntarily saying, yes, I am interested in being marketed commonly, I am not necessarily someone who believes that doing it just for the heck of it makes a big difference.
So you think consumers are more brand loyal, not necessarily to the business. So the ecosystems still kind of probably unfold few things for the business is what I'm coming to, Amit, to you. We had those conversations earlier as well. How important is when Varun said CDP probably is required, building insights at a business level while the consumer consumption is still happening at a brand, association is still at a brand level. How important is probably that?
No, there are a couple of things in that. One, when we look at it from a perspective that the consumers come into the group itself. Now, is the consumer aware that the benefit he or she can get from the group? If the brands are complementing each other, then the benefit can go. And that's where the loyalty comes in the picture. That's where the benefit comes in the picture. In our case, if a customer is shopping at a Victoria's Secret, she has a benefit coming from Charles & Keith. If she knows that as a group we've got all these brands, and because you've now shopped with one of our own brands, you get that benefit across boards. That's the reason you reach out to it. Now, yes, I completely agree with Varun. It cannot be forced. It has to be something that you reach out to the consumer when it's the right time or a requirement for it. But is she aware about what benefits she gets from the group itself? That's important. And that's where it's important to understand one behavior. It's important to understand what the consumer wants and then place it accordingly. So critical part remains is that the consumer is aware what he or she gets from a group level and the benefits that she can enjoy.
So I think marketing the benefit at a group level itself becomes a very important case.
And
right?
Those are the terms, and in our case, when we've got our own loyalty program running in, which is Club Apparel, which gives the consumer one to see what they can get and how they can travel. And that's not a program that we're running only for an India-centric. It gives a chance to take the consumer globally because the program allows her to take it across all countries that we're present in. So then you can see, as you now entered from a brand, from apparel, what benefit you can take it across all group brands that it has.
Himanshu, coming in from a traditional house, right? While there's a known affinity towards probably the other business RPSG because people understand from donkey years that they're in business. How does that kind of translate from a conglomerate point of view at a brand level and at a group level? Again, the question remains same though.
I think I agree with the panelists. It's about the synergy. Like if we are, like for example, couple of areas we are into is retail and wellness. Now through retail, we actually understand what are the users interested in. There are ample signals that indicate that there is a deep interest in wellness. And that is where the wellness brands can get plugged in at the right time. So it's about helping users with their journey and not just maximizing revenue and pushing it for the heck of it. So you have to figure out where those white spaces exist between specific categories, and that's where you consciously go and try to create a growth path, right?
Great. So not forced has to make sense at a group level. Contextual. Aseem, your view on this? Asian Paints is a well-known name in the, I mean, everybody knows Asian Paints. But how do really, at a group level, you think everything converges for the group and for the consumer as a benefit?
So when we talk about, I mean, our industry, it's all about partnering with the consumer in making their dream home. And now when we talk about dream home, I mean, it's too many things. And I agree with what he said. I think it's keeping the consumer in the center. And then if you keep the consumer in the center, and if you have the synergies between your different products, your different services, which can come together and help the consumer in their journey, I think it makes sense. And I mean, it's obviously when it's beneficial for the customer, it's also going to be beneficial for the organization as well. So I think when you have those complementing products, services, and whether the customer is aware or not, but taking that power of the ecosystem is only going to be beneficial for all the stakeholders.
So I think it's a lot to do with different businesses, how they have kind of evolved in their thought process. So while some businesses might think that my brand loyalty is stronger, so I want to continue building that, which Varun you mentioned, right? The businesses have grown without really unifying the view. But there is a part of their businesses which are saying, I want to be very contextual. I don't want to follow a rigid funnel. I want to have a customer-centric funnel as well. But the bigger question, we're going a little deeper into this conversation. Aseem, I'm going to start with you. How technology plays a role in that? And I think the audience would like to understand, how do they evaluate their technology? Where do they start from? I think that those are the kind of questions I think probably audience would have.
Okay. I'll give you my view on how I would do it. I mean, see, we are all talking about different brands coming together, different business units coming together and trying to create synergies or a very unified customer journey. Now, obviously, it starts with, I mean, whether you call it a CDP or whatever you call it, but I think what is of essence is that you have an understanding of your customer. I think that's a no-brainer. And when I say, and when you have different competing brands, or not even competing, when you have different brands and services, each one of the business evolving differently, each one of the businesses engaging with the consumer differently, I think it's very important that at least the consumer gets a very unified view of the brand or the organization that it is engaging with. So it becomes very important that you look at something, at a platform or a CDP platform or a lakehouse where you can actually pull in all the consumer data and start building a consumer 360-degree view. And I think that's where this whole industry, now we are seeing a lot of CDPs coming up and offering different solutions in this space. Secondly, what has also started happening is when you invest in or when you get into this kind of a platform, a lot of leverage that you can derive is from the data that you are now trying to put together in one place for all different consumers. So when you talk about consumer 360, you will also start getting what could be the next best action. There are a lot of evolved models, AI models that now companies are investing into. You can try to engage into personalization. Now, an industry like ours, everybody wants their home to be different. Nobody wants their home to be similar to what others have. And while we have been talking about personalization from a long time, I think with the advent of Gen AI, it has actually, I see it becoming a reality now, where I could actually really personalize my communication, or even maybe I can tell a consumer, hey, this is how your home should look, basis his interest, basis the consumer 360-degree view that I have of the consumer. So I think talking about technology, I mean, yeah, invest in something where you can actually derive the consumer view. Then you could also build on where you could have models running on it, recommendations coming out of it, and then you could actually have your communication, engagement personalized with the consumer. So that's where I see, I think it's there. And obviously it would come with its own set of challenges. I mean, it's more of a cultural change. I mean, you would have to standardize data, you would have to standardize product taxonomy, you would have to standardize how consumers' data is being stored by different businesses. That cultural collaboration angle will also have to come in, where brands are ready to share the data and do it. But if you set a right foundation, by design you are going to incorporate it in the organization. If by design it's there that all systems put it into one lake house or CDP, I think at the core you are solving the problem. So I think the cultural thing takes up, falls into place.
Foundation level is saying, be it a CDP, data lake or data warehouse, we want to kind of dump all the data and then make sense out of it for our business.
Whatever you need to do to get your consumer one view, I think that's important.
Fair. Varun, what do you want to add on this?
No, so two pieces, I fully agree. There's a data layer, there's an analytics layer, and there's an engagement layer. To my mind, the first two need to be common. And there's a lot of merit to sort of doing it common at a conglomerate level, not just ABFRL, you could look at any conglomerate, right? Because a lot of the brass tacks, the plumbing has to be common. The data models have to be similar. Ideally, you should have a similar e-com stack, you should have a similar POS stack. So standardization reduces the cost of technology. Standardization means you can go and get bulk discounts, bulk buys, you again bring down costs. So your plumbing costs reduce. So there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't have that, right? You should ideally also have an analytics platform which is common. To my mind, engagement is where I am not necessarily saying that you should have it common. That can be at a brand level. There are a lot of benefits of doing it at a brand level. Probably once you've reached a stage where, let's say out of 100 degrees of potential for a brand to maximize its own intelligence, once you've reached 60-70%, then you can say, okay, I need the other coming from the rest of the group, right? But there's a lot of stuff that can be done at a brand level itself, and focus should be a lot on that, in my view. Parts that need to be commonalized are retail insights, are product insights, are things like, okay, this consumer is a fraudster. I don't need the consumer to fraud me in 10 different brands for me to realize that, right? But engagement, in my view, still is still debatable. And I've represented both sides. So I've built loyalty programs with 140 brands in it in Indonesia, where it made a lot of sense to have a group loyalty program, because there are some brands which are targeting, let's say, like travel bags and stuff like that. Other brands which are targeting makeup. Third were women's wear. Fourth was kids wear. So it was nice. You could create a family, and it made sense. But just the heck of it doesn't generally work.
So in the three layers that you mentioned, data management, insights, I would add an orchestration and an activation layer. While orchestration is another layer where probably you want to, Aseem made a point that I want to do NBA and NBO sort of thing, that what should I offer to what sort of audiences. Coming to Himanshu, you've been running tech teams. The question is how difficult it is to build, and what sort of challenges usually conglomerates face.
Yeah, so at the moment, and people spoke about unification, of course, and we have had brilliant teams who have been working on creating those CDP layers across, and there is loads and loads of data that has been collected over years across brands still lying in. One of the key focuses right now is first for these individual brands that are more primed for innovation and change, how do you use the technology? So it is about creating that awareness and finding out these meaningful use cases. For example, at the moment, around the acquisition layer, I have a few of my product team members who are working on AI cross marketing, those kind of pieces, where the idea is with the content generation, including text and images and other types, things like how much money to put in what type of ads, and a bunch of the other such cases. How can we explore that without creating chaos, without creating disruption, and without destroying business as usual? Because there is also slightly lesser tolerance for abrupt changes within larger orgs. So it is important to bring about those changes in a meaningful way. Similarly, there has been, we have been trying to focus a lot on bringing in improvements in operations side of things using technology. For example, what kind of items should never go out of stock on a given day? It's an important piece. Or even going a layer ahead and with predictive analytics, basically saying that I have to place this order with the procurement team X days before something goes, out of stock. Over there, again, there are challenges in terms of entering the established set processes operations has, and working with the teams to sort of bringing in this POV that technology is out there to help you. And after that, only good software is the one that gets adopted, right? So it's all about the technology adoption and making these small meaningful changes and creating these success stories, which you then take to across the brands. So that's like sort of how the roadmap or the current playbook looks like.
Great.
I just want to add to what Himanshu said. I think that's very right. I mean, creating small success stories and taking it up, evangelizing that, I think that really works.
So constant value creation on the tech investments largely, which will bring me to the third question. But before that, Amit, I think we were also discussing that how retail, online, offline, there's less overlap, there are returns, there's so many problems there. And while I think I would like to elaborate a bit on that, and then how you are structured in Apparel, there's a central team, there's a brand level team. How do we really invest into technology and take decisions?
No, so it's very important to have a single view of the customer. For us, when we're looking at 18 odd brands, and as I said, in our case, these brands are complementing each other. You've got footwear, you've got fashion, you've got beauty across pods, which means the assumptions are consumers are traveling between brands, and we see that from the data views also. But what is interesting is the movement of customer between online and offline. The pre-assumption was that people would be shopping both sides, but that's not the reality, at least in our case. We only see about not more than 8-10% of consumers being common between shopping online and offline together. So again, the use of technology remains very, very important, because if you want to build journeys with the consumers, it has to be technology driven. It cannot be at a sizable data that you have. You can't just rely on human effort. You need to create pure journeys. You need to be based on technologies completely. And as I said, in our case, it's moving across. The consumers are moving across. So it's important that we target them at the right time. And then build accordingly. So yeah, I mean, online, offline was a thought that we had. We were discussing that assumptions that it's higher. It's not the case, at least in our case.
I think there's also I think businesses probably would suffer from a fear of not knowing. If I don't build that technology or I don't build that unified view, probably I won't understand. Is that the problem that we face before we start thinking of technology investments?
No, it's not the case. I mean, as I said, the base, it's how you look at it. Data is there. Everybody has that much of data now at every level. It's how you look at it from what angles. That's very important. Not everything will work exactly the same way. It has to be done in different, and again, even if the brands are similar, things don't work in the same manner. So you have to depend on technology. You need to look at it from different angles and then work it out.
I think Varun, you had a point to add on this one.
I was just going to say, to my mind, chalo paisa kuch tech bana lete hain, it doesn't work, right?
Not the new toy in town that we want to buy.
It just won't work, right? You'll very quickly run into CFO problems. You'll have to start the other way around, saying this is my problem to solve. It might be because you are either internally facing a problem or consumer is coming and saying, idiot, chalo not solving this, right? One of the two. Right, and basis that, then you figure out solutions. Some of those solutions can be tech. A lot of those solutions can be just process, right? Just getting store managers to talk better or whatever, right? There are multiple ways. Reallocating staff in peak hours. There are ways in which revenue can be built. Not everything needs to be a tech problem, and quite often we love to solve problems through tech and sometimes create more problems in that way, right? So that's the
No, well, well, I'm going to stick to the topic because we're talking about how we build tech ecosystems to unlock potential. But very true, not necessarily everything's a tech problem. It can be a very basic cultural or a process-led problem as well. But coming to the same construct that you mentioned, unification inside. These two parts you said has to be common. And Varun, if you can little bit elaborate on that, what all different KPIs, I would not call it KPIs, it's a metric, and Amit also touched upon it, how you look at the data. What all things you think for a conglomerate is important to understand from this unified view for brands to kind of make any impact via tech?
So, if I'm looking at a group loyalty program, right, my number one metric to my mind has to be cross-shopping rate. How many consumers are shopping across multiple brands? Because that's the reason of existence of the group program. Individually, brands are doing what they have to do, right? There's some amount of intelligence that you add to their operations. But core's job is, how do I take someone from, let's say in case of Tata's, Chroma into a Westside into Big Basket, and in our case, we'll have our own groups, right? And that becomes the core. If you are able to move that needle, then you have actually added consumers to the brands. And then obviously the brand's job is then to take and build the lifetime value of those consumers in a manner that that works for that brand, right? The second piece that I think the group programs need to really look at, in my view, is a form of a monetization strategy, right? Saying, how am I benefiting the group? One is I'm actively driving consumers across brands. Now I have this database, I have this core base of consumers, of insights, of their propensity across brands. Now how do I monetize that? And to my mind, those are the two levers that a group program needs to think about, whichever group program it might be.
Amit, another thing that we were discussing, I'm coming back to you, is the problem is not the second, third or a fourth purchase that you mentioned. Is the first to the second purchase. Is it a brand level or a group level you would like to?
No, so at a group level, like he said, it's important to see consumers across brands. That's the program that you want to derive, that you want to have customers that are moving inside the brands, inside the group itself. What we do is, we circle it out. You ring fence of top customer that you don't want to move away from that core. And then you keep adding from down. So from the first purchase to second, the second to the third, and how do you keep adding? And then you come across the core set of audience. Which are your top? You don't want to lose out at any point of time. And then everything is built across them. You're building people to come in those circuit out. And what we said, it's not the second and the third purchase. You see that happening. It's the first to the second purchase. The maximum gap is out there. If you're able to move that from the first to the second, then you can move inside the journey.
Yeah. So, is it safe to say that there's a funnel acquisition journey which brands basically drive on their own, but as a group, I'm probably driving the retention problem, solving the retention problem. Is that safe to say?
Just to add,
yeah,
the cost of acquisition a new customer is far higher than to make sure that the customer moves within their own group itself.
Yeah, of course.
That's far more better.
Yeah.
And if you're able to do that, you're giving benefit to the customers already shop with you. That's better.
Himanshu, you want to add something on that?
Nothing. I was just thinking retention is more like a growth opportunity when you think it across the group. But each brand, of course, it's like their primary KPI to ensure that the customers are retained and that second, third and fourth purchase happens. So I think of it more as a growth lever when you think it across the group.
Varun, you, I think, wanted to add something on this.
No, so I don't think retention is a group job, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, you retain in any brand because you like the product, like the price point, you like the experience. All three are brand propositions, right? All group is adding is, okay, I'm giving you a bit of context. I know you are likely to buy menswear in our case or whatever, right? And therefore, I'm creating better marketing in that sense, right? Inherently, 90% of retention happens on these three factors. I like the product, I like the experience, or I like the price point, right? Or the store is nearby my house, right? Very transactional, functional things, right? to my mind, what group loyalty programs are all about is, like I said, trying to drive you around and increase your brand penetration. And secondly is take that data and go to third parties and say, iske against, we'll figure out a monetization of some form. Now, it can differ by various brands and various groups, and very successful examples of monetization. If I look at examples like Delta, right, large group loyalty programs, Delta is one of the largest and one of the best group loyalty programs. The group loyalty program Delta Miles is worth more than the airline, right? And that's because they have consistently built a data monetization strategy, as opposed to saying कि हमारा job तो खाली retention है, वो नहीं होता. That's not going to drive an enterprise value.
Monetization at a group level, because another one of the key KPIs on this, very important. Aseem, in your case, there's a huge part of the business which is offline and has no tech control over it. It's basically somebody building a house, coming to a store, and a lot of time it's influenced by the architects or the local vendors and so forth. So how do you see, where do you see the impact of the technology overall in this at a group level?
Okay. So while we are talking about this single view of customers, getting to know the customer, I think you're right. I think in our case, a lot of consumers just walk into the stores and have a very heavy influence by the local architects, interior designers, even the contractors, painters. And hence what becomes important is even my staff on the ground or staff on the field to be able to really nudge the customer in the right direction, to be really able to know, okay, was the consumer really interested in a particular wallpaper or a product. And this is where we see a lot of value coming in, where if we really have the consumer view, we can actually provide the right information, right insight to my sales guy, which can then really enrich his interaction with the consumer. And that's where I mean, we can cut to the chase. We can really get into the okay, sir, maybe this is the wallpaper you had liked. Maybe these are the matching things with the wallpaper, and this is the wallpaper I've just superimposed on one of the houses and showing you. So this is just an example of how a journey can be built, where my end user, my end persona who is interacting with the customers really gets empowered. They have the real knowledge and real insights on how we can talk to the customer and really add value to the consumer's dream of making a home, and not just starting from zero every time. So that's where we see this is and obviously it needs a lot of I mean, it's not just a tech problem. I mean, there are a lot of cultural elements, processes elements that come involved. But yeah, I think this is where we see value.
Yeah, so keeping the customer experience at the heart of it. I mean, I think Varun made a very strong point when he said, it could be processes and enabling your end mile customer facing representative of the brand. If you're enabling that probably, but it stems from largely what I think the common theme is coming out about is that a strong data management layer, irrespective of a CDP or data lakehouse or warehouse, we need to have a unified view of the customer, which also builds and helps us in building stronger insights at a group level, and thereby then could be a very brand level decision making on top of that. Yeah, we have a couple of minutes on the clock, so I'm gonna ask one thing that somebody should do and one thing that somebody should not do while thinking of unlocking. I know it could be just one line or one word as a closing statement. Yeah.
Don't over communicate to the consumer. Just don't bombard them with everything that you have. It's important you reach out at the right time, but just don't bombard it. It will backfire back.
Himanshu.
Yeah, maybe by the time come after you.
I would say, I think just add value to the journey. I think whatever you do, I think data should help you really add value. Otherwise, it's...
Yeah.
Yeah, like agree. On don't do is don't buy tech for the heck of it, and because it looks nice. It has to solve a problem, and secondly, help the consumer solve the problem. If you do that.
So use case mining becomes the important part. Yeah. Manchu, you're just agreeing with everybody.
Keep moving. I don't know. Like.
All right. I think good conversation. We are right on time. So thank you so much, guys. It's a pleasure talking to you all. I hope we had shared some insights for everybody in the audience. If you have more questions, we all can meet outside. And yeah, have a great evening, everyone. Thank you so much.